to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast with Borg, Betz, and a baller.
Welcome in. It's the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined by Matthew Betz and Mike Wright.
Welcome in, everybody. We gotta address this at the start, okay, Kyle? Every week, we talk about Dynasty Fantasy Football. We talk, whether it's you, me, and Mike,
on this pod?
Jason, on this podcast, that happens. But every single show, someone comments, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcast Review, on Twitter, they're like, why don't you guys talk about SuperFlex? Where is the SuperFlex conversation? If that has been you for the last 3 or 4 or 5, 6 weeks, today's your show.
They're out there. Whoever you are. And we listen. And even more so.
We love our SuperFlex friends. They're a passionate group of individuals.
We are like the Sherpas here to guide you up the mountain. I feel like the three of us would do a terrible job if it was up to us guiding.
What, like getting up Everest?
Yeah, just dead.
Oh, my death rate would be 100%.
Oh, you went hiking with Mike, right? Yeah, no. My whole family's gone because of that man.
Dude, have you ever seen the line? Thank you you're distracting me now, but the lines for people waiting to get to the summit of Everest?
I took that as Vegas lines immediately.
Nope. We're talking about Mount Everest. Like, people who climb it, it's now so touristy that, like, people wait hours and hours in this single file line as they're trying to make the final push to the top. It's so wild.
It's commercialized, It's
yeah.
I can't. That's why I personally
the man has gotten a hold of Mount Everest. What's next?
That's why I personally don't hike it, just because everyone else is doing it.
Yeah. I would have done it when it wasn't cool.
Kyle, I wouldn't give you an hour on that mountain, dude. You'd be toast.
You don't think I could train? Gosh, that's not a hypothetical, like, oh, maybe I could do this. Kind of like when Jason talks about, like, landing a plane. This is like, right. You're dead if you don't, really go.
Yeah.
It's not a casual thing. I just casually hiked Mount Everest with some friends.
Anyway, next company trip.
Yeah.
Gather all of us there.
And we're just done. Yes, we will be talking SuperFlex rankings, and I think it's more of a philosophical conversation because at this point, if you have a Dynasty league that's SuperFlex, you understand the importance of the position. Hopefully you have at least one stud. But for a lot of us, you're in the middle of it and you're trying to trade. You're figuring out in rookie drafts how to value these players. So we're going to talk about that conversation and what it isn't, because it doesn't change everything. It's a piece of the puzzle. So we'll have that conversation. We'll go through Mike's rankings. And I'm really glad that you're on the show, Mike, because you have a philosophical difference than the other two ballers. And that's something that is totally okay. All right. Like, it's not like you have to do something a certain way. But that's kind of like your brand, though, too.
Look, man, I have a lot of truth to tell, and I'm glad I have this platform to share it with everyone.
Yeah. So that's all we're doing here. You can go to ultimatedraftkit.com. All of our rankings, these startup rankings that we're going to be discussing today are there. They're sortable, and the Ultimate Draft Kit is right around the corner. Betz, you were telling me, I think it's 11 days. I haven't actually looked at the count.
As of 10 days as of this show being released. So coming in quick.
Yep. Every single player statted out. I was just looking through the projections and looking through how they're breaking down each teams. And Mike, I know that you've kind of taken an approach over the years of looking at the team, looking at the trends over the year, and then building out your projections based on market shares and all that stuff. Like, that's there in the Ultimate Draft Kit, and we're almost there.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I start top down of how is this team trending with the amount of plays that they're running. Did they make a coaching change? Did they make a quarterback change? Those things will affect that. And then, your pass to rush ratio, and then just trickle it down. Then, it's a couple sprinkles here and there.
Yeah. I mean, a couple dynasty sprinkles. That's all you really need.
Easy. Just a real quick dozens and dozens of hours over this past few weeks.
It's
real easy.
I don't feel bad because we love our job, but there is a part of it where you start figuring out, like, okay, so how many targets do I give Josh Reynolds? Like, how do we really work out these players that are like wide receiver 3s, running back 4s and 5s, which in Dynasty world, we're like scrapping, like, I need any of these players to contribute on my roster. So I do have a quick question for us. It's from the Foot Clan. This is a question from one of our Dynasty channels. So if you go to ballersdiscord.com, you can be a part of that. But the username is Dynasty. So,
Dynasty. That used to be Jason's team name in the League of Record.
Really?
Yeah, he's had to rebrand many times over the course of failures happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, back when I joined, I believe he was the Dynasty.
Yeah, people have to rebrand when it's just not really working for them. So
I get it.
Yeah, Mike and I got a strong team. So this question is from Dynasty. Do you have any strategies on picking up rookies that are left after the rookie draft? So in a majority of leagues, we've done the rookie draft. We have our rankings, did the mock draft a couple weeks ago. But is there any strategies over the summer? It's May 22nd right now. You're going to get a little bit of a lull. Like right now, the news is look at these rookies running around in shorts. But for the next month or two, we're grasping for anything. So Betz, anything over the summer that's been tried and true for you to find the next Puka?
I mean, it's so easy, isn't it? You just grab that guy off your waiver wire and you print.
Every year we got one.
Yeah. Last year was so unique, right? Especially with like the Kyron thing, but he was on a bunch of rosters, but then Puka, that was like once every 10 years, something like that happens where he's that good. It just doesn't happen. So keep expectations in check. But I will say you want to be proactive, and whenever you see something that's slightly positive, hearing a coach talk about a player, reading beat reporters talking about, oh, that guy's getting runs with the second team. Oh, now they're actually getting runs with the first team. Like when you kind of get a little momentum, I feel like oftentimes we're like, yeah, but that'll never happen. Like, don't worry about it. You kind of brush it to the side. You wait till training camp gets here. You wait till preseason gets here. You wait to actually see it on the field. Don't wait. Like any positive news that comes out right now with hype, there's players on your roster, I can guarantee you in Dynasty, that you can drop and it won't affect your team regardless of how the player that you pick up does. And if you're wrong, who cares? You just drop them in 2 or 3 months and it's like it never happened and you move on. But I don't want to wait around and miss out. So one guy that kind of caught my eye recently was Blake Watson, the running back out of Memphis, is where he went to school his final year. He's in Denver, in case you were not aware, but an undrafted free agent in Denver. Sean Payton was talking about this guy, making comparisons to how he plays, his play style, catching the football, Alvin Kamara-esque. Is he going to be Alvin Kamara? No, probably not. Is he going to make the team? Maybe, and if he does, this is a completely ambiguous backfield. There are only 2 running backs last year that caught 50-plus catches in the FBS, Bucky Irving and Blake Watson. So I picked him up in a couple spots. I'm ready to drop him in August if it doesn't work out, but right now he's getting a little bit of hype out of rookie minicamp, and I think he's worth picking up.
Memphis running back Mike.
Yeah, no, I went, excuse me. Tell me more. That'll be a tough one. I mean, the depth chart, while it is ambiguous, it's clogged. Like there's just a lot of guys there right now. Of Javante's there for sure. McLaughlin, after last year's breakout, I think that he's a lock. And Estimate, with being a 5th round pick, it seems like he should make the team over an undrafted guy. So I mean, I guess Samaje Perine is kind of he feels like the odd man out. And would they really keep 4 running backs on the roster as well? But at this time, so when you were talking about it, Betz, it's always a kind of a difficult comparison because it feels a little bit gross because these are people, these are guys with like dreams and lives and everything, families. But the comparisons of the game of fantasy football to the stock market is just it's there. Like there are parallels that you cannot ignore. And I always talk about so much of Dynasty is what is the actual perceived market value in your game of that player and what they're about to do. And these undrafted guys, it's like a penny stock where the value is so low, the probability of anything doing so low, but all that thing has to do is jump from 1 to 2 cents, and that thing is like your value is 2x. Where, you know what I mean? And then the big
Mike
stocks
just giving out financial advice right here on the show.
No, I'm not a financial advisor. just a financial advisor comparisner type of guy. So I don't know. That's where my brain goes. And also, I'll jump in with my tip. And right after the rookie draft, we talk about be really aggressive at that point, because that's when you have the players with the highest odds, and it's the easiest one is draft capital. And draft capital, people have their needs, especially at the running back position, so that ends up pushing much higher drafted wide receivers down the board. But like I remember, our main dynasty is a 3-rounder, so we get more players in our waiver wire pool than a 4-rounder. It's like Daniel Jones went undrafted, right? Because we were all laughing like hyenas at how stupid the New York Giants were that they would spend whatever the 5th or 6th overall pick on Daniel Jones. There's no way it's going to work. But what if it works? And so I got him off of the waiver wire. SuperFlex people are freaking out. I would never. Yeah, I get it. Single quarterback. But point being, and Terry McLaurin passed through years ago onto our waiver wire. And it's like draft capital. That's the easiest thing to go after. As soon as your rookie draft is about done or near completion or just done, start combing the list and see if any day 2 players happen to sneak through, because they do. They do. We all freak out about our running back position, so we draft these guys day 3 running backs over day 2 wide receivers. It happens all the time.
Yes, and I think at this point you're mostly going to get positive news. You're going to get he's learning the playbook so well. Here's how we saw him throw in shorts to.
Thank you. That reminded me of my other point, Kyle, is pay attention to negativity.
Yes.
Far more than positivity at this point, and I mean it for not just that player, but then the peripherals. What happens? Like if out of Denver, we start getting some news of like Samaje Perine. I'm just making this up. This hasn't been said. Samaje Perine showed up. He's out of shape. Yada yada yada.
Samaje's fat. Those kind of things.
Blake Watson to the moon. All those things.
Samaje Perine struggling right now. I'm just saying, any type of negativity for that category, for that player position group, and I'd be like, okay, well, I can see a world where Samaje Perine is easily cut from this team. So then that speaks more to what Betz is talking about, picking up Blake Watson. So that's just draft capital and listening to negative news, and then finding the threads.
Yes,
where that negative news, if it's pulled and unraveled, what could that turn into?
Yeah, Samaje Perine was, spotted at White Castle with a sack full of burgers. He's put on 20 pounds. And no, it's mostly looking at that news and saying to yourself, like, right now at this point, the social media team, all these, they're putting out things for us to get engaged over the summer.
They're trying to they're selling a product right now.
Yeah, and the same thing with the coach. Like, he just met these players, so it's going to be glowing things. He's learned the playbook, all these things. So negative news is a big deal if it comes out of a coach's mouth at this point, because everything looks great. Everybody's running the best stuff. I would say a tip for me is find a team with a scheme that you really like. That's like a great hurdle is, okay, well, I'm looking at the Rams and we trust Sean McVay and we've kind of seen that. And then you can also look at the second step. We care about opportunity. For wide receivers, it's teams that don't have a strong number 2 option. And you can look at it and say that there's a path for this person to be relevant. Not saying they're going to be a superstar. And so with Puka last year, you could have looked at his production profile at BYU and say, okay, there's some stuff that was there that we liked, but the draft capital sucks and we're not really sure. But over the summer, you saw McVay, you saw Kupp kind of praise Puka and say that. And so it kind of combined the two things. By no means should you have it all figured out in June or July that these players are going to be superstars. If anything, they might not even make the team, like a lot of these undrafted free agents. So just kind of hold those things together. I do want to throw out a name that I really like. Betz has heard me talk about him before. Rasheen Ali, Baltimore Ravens running back, that had a really crazy production profile.
Yeah, he did.
Got hurt, and then got hurt in the Senior Bowl. And so a lot of his, the buzz around him was just not there. But there is a path, because when you look at this roster, Derrick Henry is not a foregone conclusion. He's going to be on this roster next year. Justice Hill's a free agent. Keaton Mitchell's, up in the air about what he's going to be as an undrafted free agent returning. There is a path, and he does have a 3-down skill set. That's all I really need. I like the scheme. There's maybe a path. Throw him on the end of my bench. If you have a taxi squad, he's the perfect kind of player to throw on that. So who knows? Half these guys, we won't even remember they were in the league 2 or 3 years from now. But you'll get a Zonovan Knight or, just guys like that you're just like, I'm trying to find anybody. So another name is Dylan Johnson. He's an undrafted free agent running back for the Titans. There's just guys out there that you're just trying to find. And after the draft, everybody's scooped up. Nobody really knows what's going on, but there's names that you can at least try. But there's holes in all of them, right? Like Blake Watson, I think is going to be 24, 25 when the season starts. Like, there's a reason these guys are chilling out there.
He's experienced, Kyle. That's a positive.
Yeah, experience is experience. It's a big deal, as Loki once said. So, you can get all of our rankings, Dynasty Pass, all of those things are updated and will be updated on June 1st with all of our projections. So it is a good time to be alive. Let's move forward with our SuperFlex rankings talk.
Dynasty Rankings.
That's a nice little ditty.
Did you forget about that?
Did I do that? Apparently?
You did that, Mike.
Wow. All right.
I think last summer you went to the workshop and you just said, you know what, I got to come out with a little 5-second little banger.
That was tasty. I'm just saying.
If I do say so myself.
I did a really good job.
I just love thinking about your past self. You're like, I'm going to write this little thing. I'm going to put it in the Dynasty show. And then your future self's like, I have no idea where that came from.
Yeah, it happens.
So the SuperFlex people are having a party right now saying, thank you. Glad you're bringing it up. I think the discussion I want to start with before we get into Mike's actual rankings, we'll walk through those, is that SuperFlex, they're a passionate group like Mike said. And that's good. Like fantasy football is one of those things. And this company was founded on a couple of people who were working their real jobs, but really they were talking about fantasy football all the time. So we love the passion. And I think the barometer for us with the fantasy footballers is, are you having fun in your leagues? And whatever format it is, like I have friends that play IDP. I don't play IDP, but if it's fun for you, you're in this contract IDP triple kicker league and it's fun, that's awesome. But I guess it's also not one of those things where you don't look at everybody else and say, well, I guess they're not having fun because they're not in the same league. Like the league of record, Mike, and I'll let you speak on this. Like it's the reason the podcast started, and there is no money involved, and yet it is more competitive than any other league I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, that all of those things are true. We got the right mix of players, of people who are passionate about the game and competitive to a fault, where a little bit too hyper competitive sometimes, where when things don't go your way, you get, emotionally upset for multiple days. It's all just about having fun. I'll jump in with the way I look at SuperFlex and the way I think about it is, again, like a market, and it changes the equation of the supply and the demand, because any given week, you have up to 32 starting quarterbacks. So that and when everyone only needs one, that changes things. But when everyone needs, or the perception is they need to, people can, I think, overlook what else their roster needs and just get caught so hung up in, well, I got quarterbacks, they put up huge points, so I have to have two of them. And all like SuperFlex to me, like it's just all fantasy football teams, especially in Dynasty, have a weak point. And generally speaking, that weak point is if you're in a single quarterback, it's at the running back position. And it's like I can go through the roster of the main Dynasty league that I'm in, and I think there's maybe two teams where you look at the roster and say they have 3 solid running backs, and everyone else is like, I have 1 to 2-ish. So it's just, and that's the weak point, the weak point of the team. When you introduce Superflex, now it's how do you bake the team? How do you make it? Like everyone has a weakness somewhere, and you're just choosing where it increases the odds of moving that over. Well, I can have the weakness at the quarterback position because everyone else chose that as a strength. So my wide receivers and my running backs are really solid. You know what I mean? So it's not. It doesn't completely change everything to me. It's still fantasy football. It's still points. What is the differential? What is the points of the quarterback 16 versus the point drop of like wide receiver 24 to 36? So it's making sure you're accounting for all of those and not just looking at it's the quarterback and they scored the most, so I have to have them, or it's useless and my team can't go anywhere.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of like one of the biggest edges in Superflex, in my opinion, is the understanding that the elite guys are the elite guys no matter how you play, whether it's one quarterback, Superflex, whatever. They're the dudes, right? Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, those are the guys. And they're going to be difference makers for you regardless of format. The issue that I think a lot of people get into with Superflex when they're thinking about especially trading for someone that's already a confirmed starter or, a startup pick is like valuing this kind of like quarterback 10 to like quarterback 16, 17-ish range where you're like, well, it's Superflex, so like I got to take this quarterback 2 over, I don't know, plug in an elite wide receiver name or an elite running back name. You're like, I got to get 2 quarterbacks out of the gate or I can't compete. But I have found my most successful Superflex teams, whether it's, Dynasty or in redraft leagues, is like, I want one of the elite guys, but after that, like, give me 2 of the quarterback 20 to 24 range and I'll piece it together with matchups or just not play that guy that week and I'll play my elite wide receivers instead of that guy that you think just because he's a quarterback has to be in your lineup and has to be drafted highly. I think that's kind of where the edge exists because, you look at kind of last year was an extreme example, I think, but you had just guys out of nowhere giving you top 12 numbers, because of injury and stuff like that. But year over year, right? Like the quarterback 12, the quarterback 13 is not winning you your league. But if you hit on a couple of elite wide receivers and you get an elite quarterback, now we're talking and you can kind of piece it together from there. So I do think there is a pretty big edge in Superflex, and that's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah, and I think this discussion, like there's so many different areas, and so we'll get into Mike's rankings. We'll talk more about, I think the biggest question is people ask, where should I take them? It's almost like, there's like a set thing of what you're supposed to do. So we'll talk about what you're supposed to do and then what maybe you could do in zigzag. So we'll be right back. With Superflex leagues, they obviously are becoming more and more, front and center. People are talking about them on Sleeper. And it's kind of also hard to quantify because if you ask somebody, do you play in Superflex? They'll say yes, but it's, the person like me, it's like, well, I'm in a couple of different Dynasty leagues. One's a Superflex, one of them's a one quarterback. So it's kind of like we can double count what these leagues are and who's really into it when at the end of the day, both leagues, whatever they are, can be strategic. And I think a lot of times people say with Superflex, well, quarterback's the most important position. So we need to have another spot. And it can correct some of the issues, but every single scoring format has problems. It's not perfect. Full PPR tried to overcorrect some stuff, tight end premium. It's football and it's chaotic, and that's okay. But let me ask you guys this question.
And also the trends of the league change, like where PPR, in my opinion, what the hope for when that scoring format was brought into is we got to boost the value of some of these wide receivers because like it's hard for us to remember now.
Running backs were killing it.
But the running backs were everything. And I mean, like for some of the younger fantasy football players, you're like, well, I've never even heard of that. But for us older guys, like it wasn't that long ago that the NFL was not even close to as pass friendly as it is right now. So that's part of it. If you can update your scoring settings and then an NFL trend sneaks up out of nowhere, and before you know it, you're 4 years into that trend playing with this PPR where wide receivers like are getting a 1.2 points for a 2-yard catch, and now running backs are more and more in committees and they're getting 1 point for a 10-yard carry. Like this seems to be a little broken, but it wasn't. Like back when that was coming out, it was just So we have to be adaptable and change with the NFL.
Yeah, it was. Here's Priest Holmes and what he's doing, and LaDainian Tomlinson. Let's figure out a way. Well, there's the same issue every single generation. So I like that point, Mike, because the NFL will keep changing, and in fantasy football, we want to get along with it. But let me ask you this question, because this is a super flex question. Who was more important to fantasy football this past year? So 2023 fantasy football, Russell Wilson or Puka Nacua? Who was more important?
We're talking just football?
Yeah, just fantasy football. Who was more important to
Puka.
the game? Yeah, not even close, right? No one, I don't think, would argue. Now, you can look at what Russell Wilson didn't start those final week, but he was QB 14, and he scored actually more points than Puka Nacua this past year, who was the wide receiver 4. So in a super flex league, you could look at Russell Wilson and say he was a strong quarterback too. And yet, if you had him on your roster, there was no difference making that happened at all with Russell Wilson. Like if you tried, there was a couple of games and that was it. Same thing with like Derek Carr. You could have somebody who is a QB2 and yet still run into the problems of it didn't really help you. In fact, Derek Carr averaged 12 points per game up until the fantasy playoffs. So if you had Derek Carr in a Superflex league, he might have finished as a strong QB2, and yet he was worthless. Like you didn't make the playoffs, so you had Derek Carr likely. So
dude, Derek Carr is like the poster boy for like Superflex format is kind of broken, right? Because it's like he's going to finish as a top 24 quarterback. He's almost
top
certainly
20.
never going to be the reason you win a title or like your team is incredible, right? It's like it's just what he does. Quarterback 13 to quarterback 20. That's where he lives. Write it in stone every year. But never is he giving you a difference-making season. But because if he plays quarterback and because people think that they have to plug him in as the quarterback 2 in their lineup, he has perceived value in a trade market, right? And it's like Derek Carr is not the reason you're winning your Superflex league, obviously.
Do I need to remind you, Week 15 start of fantasy football playoffs? Derek Carr, wide receiver 7, then the semis, quarterback 7, and then semis, quarterback 3. You leave Derek Carr alone.
Mike, always a defendant. In fact, I think earlier this offseason you said he stinks.
I got I did?
Yeah, you did. I think he had the most touchdowns in the league over the last month. So if you got to the playoffs and you had Derek Carr, congratulations. I think also with Superflex, I asked this question out on Twitter. I said, what percentage of time do you start a quarterback in your Superflex spot? And I found, based on the percentages, that 90% of the people are basically starting a quarterback every single time. And to me, it doesn't really add extra strategy in start sits, right? Like you pretty much, everyone ideally, unless you have an injury or a bye, you're probably starting a quarterback there. And if you have a strong QB3, then maybe, but a lot of time you're just kind of plugging in these two quarterbacks and then you're trying to figure out your other spots. So for Superflex, the main strategy for me is in startup drafts and in trading. Those are the two things. How do you value these players as opposed to these start sits? So a difference between a one quarterback and Superflex to me is not that different in start sits. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah,
I think so.
I'm tracking along.
Yeah,
for the most part.
It's a roster construction issue.
There are some examples though, like if you just went complete stars and scrubs, like if you were like trotting out Josh Allen, obviously every week last year, it's a no-brainer. And then you're like, oh man, I got Bryce Young and I don't know, someone else that was terrible last year as like your other two dudes.
Nick Mullins.
Oh, Nick Mullins was chucking it, okay, man, down the stretch.
But you had to
which
make
is the
a
point of this
decision.
conversation. If like you were like, I took Bryce Young, he's going to be my starter as my quarterback 2 in my lineup every week. If you didn't adjust throughout the season and be like, this is not going well, I can probably get similar, if not better, production from a wide receiver on my team. I don't think you have to start that guy if they're truly having, that sort of year.
Yeah, and what Mike was saying earlier is that the thing that changes is the supply and demand, but if you're in a dynasty league, you're not in your startup draft anymore. You've inherited a roster over years, or you drafted last year or whenever, and then you're trying to figure out like, how does my league value this and how do I respond? I found out this data. I got to give a shout out. Make sure I get the username Adeko FF. He did all this research and found in dynasty leagues on Sleeper who the most common quarterbacks were on winners. And I showed the guys this list right before we recorded. And our main takeaway was, and I'll tweet out this list, but the studs were the studs in Superflex. And then it was really flat, whoever your QB2 was. I mean, Sam Howell's on this list, Jake Browning's on this list, Baker Mayfield, Nick Mullins, guys that you went into the year thinking, I don't even know what these guys are. Like, my biggest takeaway is that you can kind of win with any combination in Superflex. No?
Yeah, the quarterback list is not surprising to me because it's Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts are two of the top 3 spots, and then it's which quarterback got hot, and it's Dak, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, Sam Howell, and then then just a list. Then it's kind of a list of who did you get off of the waiver wire there, or you had stashed. Maybe you didn't get him off the wire, but you had him stashed because he was a backup quarterback. It was that Jake Browning and Nick Mullins being on the list, but it's. I mean, I still don't. I don't think it changes. I'm sorry. It doesn't extremely change how I look at the quarterbacks. It's just like running backs. Of like I could replace that position. Say the studs were the studs. Who got hot, and then who did I get out the waiver wire? It's the like you're saying, Kyle. It's the roster construction of when I'm in the Superflex, I'm finding the backup quarterbacks who have not been snatched up, just like I'm trying to find the running backs who are the backups who have not been snatched. And, just we're talking an injury or two, and these guys are now in a starting roster for fantasy football.
I think most people, when they look at their dynasty leagues, and Mike, you can speak about the Ballers main dynasty league, but it's like the people who won, you can go on ESPN, the most common players that were on winning rosters. It's the dudes you think of. It's CeeDee Lamb, it's Amon-Ra, it's Kyron, it's Sam Laporta, it's CMC, Puka. Like, these are the guys that won people leagues, and yet quarterback's actually pretty flat when you compare that. I give you some of those numbers on Sleeper. So at the end of the day, we're not saying it's not important. We just want to give a holistic view that in Superflex leagues, any combination. I mean, when I asked people like, hey, who were the 2 quarterbacks in your league? It was anybody and everybody. If they were breathing, you could have won a championship with these quarterbacks. And some people said like, hey, I didn't have anybody at the end of the year. I'm, throwing out Tyrod or, whoever else. It's just like, it could work there. So I think it's, to me, we'll talk to Mike's rankings, but I would love a stud. I'd want the difference makers that you mentioned, the Hurts, the Josh Allen, Dak Prescott. And then the rest of the way, I kind of want to just figure out my QB2 and if I even need QB3, which is another question. So, Betz, any thoughts on these winners and how you could win in Dynasty?
No, I think it kind of speaks to what we were talking about with that mid-range QB2 range of rankings
Super
or weekly.
mid. Yeah.
Couldn't be more mid, honestly. Of just being a big group of really the same type of player, the same archetype. Like, could have a spike week in the right matchup, could give you 10, 11 points and disappoint. Like, it's all kind of the same guy generally. And obviously you should have your player takes of who you think could take a step forward, who you might think regresses. I will also say too, like in startup rankings, when you look at that, quarterback 12 and beyond range, oftentimes people are talking themselves into a scenario. And we've talked about this on the show a lot of like, this guy, I'm going to take him in the startup because he's going to be the starter for the next 3 years. And I have a quarterback on lockdown. And it's like, well, if he doesn't perform, he is not the starting quarterback. We see it year over year over year, right? Like it's happening. The NFL moves on. Daniel Jones is the perfect example of that. Like, I think the clock is ticking. I think I would be trying to sell him immediately in a Superflex league if I could, with positive news about his ACL right now. So just once the NFL and once teams decide like it's time to kind of look for the next guy, these guys lose value really quickly. So that is a very fragile range, in my opinion, in startups.
So I have the ultimate draft kit right in front of me, and I have sorted by Mike's rankings. So little different when you look at Superflex than Andy and Jason's. And so let's talk through that, Mike. Like, why do you have a philosophical difference of it's okay to grab running or wide receivers, especially early on, and not feel like I have to take a quarterback in the first round or, even in the second round, but we'll walk through those rankings. It seems like for yours, you'd rather have the wide receivers, and then late in the second round, you're willing to get a guy there, as opposed to like pushing everybody up to the top of the first. Because last year, the guys at the end of the first round in Superflex rankings were Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, because people felt like they had to take a quarterback.
Right.
And a year later, that's just crumbled.
Yeah, and to be clear, it's the 4 the big 4 elite wide receivers. That's who I have at the top of even Superflex: Jefferson, Chase, Lamb, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. After that, no, then I'm in. Like, okay, now I will address the quarterback position. And so again, supply demand, it comes down to if I'm in Superflex, well, number one, it's called the Superflex. If it's not 2 quarterback, like that's a different scoring format altogether. It's Superflex. It's flexible. Your options are open. You could put any position into there that you need to, but you're still, I don't have the data in front of me, but it's like you're going to have 2 wide receivers, a super flex spot, and you're going to have another flex spot. Like, so we're talking 3 wide receivers again of making sure that I want to make up the point. I feel like I can make up the point gap by building with wide receivers and get quarterbacks later of that range of 12 to 24 or whatever, guys who are just they're all going to live in that whatever, like a 13-point range, but they're all going to be the same, where it's going to fall off quicker. Or I'm saying like, and then after that it falls off for the quarterbacks, and I want to just I make up the points with the wide receiver position, seeing them as more steady moving forward, and just leaving the options more open to how I can do things for my team, instead of it's very rigid if you go quarterback early. Now you are behind at the other positions. Again, where do you want your weakness to be?
Yeah, and we've mentioned any combination can win. So there are people in one of my leagues the year before, he won with Mahomes and Herbert, and that's awesome. In that same league this next year, it was Goff and then the Denver quarterbacks. He won with like Russell Wilson and Stidham, and it can work. And because those teams were built on wide receivers and making up the difference there, like there's a big difference when Mike's saying, hey, you're taking Amon-Ra, and then let's say you get Jared Goff and you have a stack there, which would have been awesome this year. You're able to make up where the other person says, like, I have to take Trevor Lawrence because I needed a quarterback. And then they're falling behind at the other positions like wide receiver. And they're trying to, stack Trevor Lawrence with a wide receiver who's fine in that wide receiver 2 range, but not near the same ceiling as those top 4
And you're
guys.
already behind. Like you're already behind if there's been a huge quarterback run and you're like, well, I got to get in. So I take the QB 8 or whatever, QB 9 or 10, while a top 4 elite wide receiver is on the board. Like you're already starting your position at a place of weakness instead of getting a super strength somewhere. You're falling behind immediately by taking a quarterback in that range.
Yeah, quarterbacks, especially like when I asked people like, are you starting a quarterback always in that superflex spot? They mostly said yes, because it's a floor play. You're going to get a high floor. You're going to get 14 points or whatever it is in your scoring format. And then you also see a ceiling outcome. Like Derek Carr can have an awesome game. Jared Goff, if he is at home, is going to have an awesome game. Like those things can happen.
Right.
But you are also missing out on the ceiling play of these wide receivers that are the true difference makers. So I don't know. The preferred strategy, I think, for a lot of people is to grab at least in a startup one of the studs in the first round or the first 2 rounds. But it kind of feels like everybody has that same strategy. Like when I go in a startup, I was like, oh, I'd love to have Jalen Hurts. It's like, well, I think everybody else is targeting him too. So I don't know. Do you take that same approach, Betz?
Yeah, for the most part. I think it depends on where you're at. Obviously, at the top of the board, and then it's easy. You grab one of the elites and you kind of just let your league mates try to play catch up. The worst part is like if you're at the back of the first, you're like, man, do I double tap quarterback here and just kind of hope I get a guy that takes a leap this year? If that guy does not take a leap, Trevor Lawrence-esque of last year, he was going in this range at 10th, 11th, 12th overall. Man, feels like a wasted startup pick, right? Like you passed on, I don't know, Jamar Chase, or I'm making this up, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, whoever was there. Like you probably passed on one of those guys. So it seems scary and it can be terrifying, but you do not want to be taking quarterback just because you feel like you need to take a quarterback. Remember, this is a startup draft. You're trying to set yourself up for success for years down the road. Obviously, quarterbacks are valuable. I'm not saying they're not, but this is where the edge is like if people feel like they have to get someone and it's like, well, man, I can't wait here. I got to go get someone. And you're like, I just passed on a top 5 wide receiver in Dynasty. Like, that seems so silly, right? So I'm always best player available no matter where I am in the draft. I do differ from Mike's ranks a little bit in that if I was at the top of the board, like, I'm taking Allen, Mahomes, Hurts, pick your guy.
That's fine. Yeah,
I'm taking my guy and being able to kind of build from there. But that's, to me, one of the biggest issues is people reaching at the back of the first, early second to get a guy that's not a difference maker. It
is scary to leave the first round or second round with, I mean, it's like you're potty training your kid. He's not wearing a pull-up. He's going to learn over time. But I've just seen rosters that double up the wide receivers and they have a CeeDee Lamb. And Mike, your team was a team that went all in on those wide receivers. And that's how you won that league, because you were behind the 8 ball at some running back spots. And then you were still figuring, I mean, quarterback, dear Lord, you figured out quarterback for like the whole length of that league has been like, who do I start? The right guy or the wrong guy? And yet the wide receivers is how you won the league.
Yep. And I also dealt with massive, like I lost my 2 starters. I lost Burrow and Cousins and had to figure it out. I mean, the waiver wire was very kind to me. Thank you, Mr. Joe Flacco and Jake Browning. But scared, I think that was going to be my next point of, if you haven't done a SuperFlex draft and the mental stress of those first few rounds where you see quarterbacks flying off the board. Every SuperFlex draft I've been a part of, that's how it happens, and I agree. It feels terrifying. But let the entire draft tell the story of the draft, not just the first 2 rounds. Because now all those people are, if they went quarterback early, they're heavily invested in those quarterbacks, and now they're the ones who are making up wide receivers and running backs. Like, they're trying to catch up, and all those, not all, but that's when the mid-level quarterbacks start to fall. And if you've done a SuperFlex draft, I encourage you, go back and look, see how it really shook out, and look at what happened with some value quarterbacks, of where my strategy is staying water, of course, in a draft where people go crazy for quarterbacks. But where I'm always freaking out in those first few rounds of like, I don't have a quarterback, I should have done it. And then by round 9, when I have 3 of them that I now get to stream my best 2 options, my best 2 matchups of the week, you go, oh, well, actually, look at that. Look at those 3 quarterbacks that I managed to end up with on top of now, and I have elite wide receiver talent or running back talent at the top. So it's, go back and look at your drafts and see how they really shook out, and find a team that waited. They waited. And it's terrifying every time. But then by round 9 or 10, your anxiety goes down because you were able to stack up an elite talent at other positions, and then find 3 of those mid-range quarterbacks that you get to pick from every single time.
It's a foolproof strategy. I mean, it's just
I'm not saying it's foolproof.
What?
I'm just saying that's how it has worked for me in the past.
I'm in a league where a guy missed out on, in our startup drafts, like, he just kept missing quarterbacks and didn't want to reach. And his roster has CMC on it. He has the wide receiver, firepower, and he's made it to the finals back-to-back year. He hasn't won, but like Geno and Baker have been his quarterbacks. He had Jameis Winston for a while, where he was just piecing it together. And for a while, he would start like Keenan Allen or Mike Evans in his SuperFlex because he had enough dudes there to make it work.
Right.
So any combination can work. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. So we started off talking about a philosophical approach to SuperFlex, kind of walked through the first round, but the second tier and the third tier of quarterbacks, I think, is the hardest if you're in a startup draft, or if you're trading right now, you're trying to assess like these guys that are good, and yet like they're not quite in this tier where you're just like, I'm locking in, like Jordan Love. Jordan Love is really, really good. Jordan Love is probably going to be good for a long time. But to put Jordan Love in this like top 4, top 5 quarterback conversation in Dynasty is probably a massive jump right now. So then you ask yourself, Jordan Love or some of the rookies, where do you draft them? So I'll start off with you, Betz. How should we value this second or third tier of quarterbacks? Because in startups, they usually get boosted to that kind of round 1, round 2 fringe area.
Yeah, they definitely do. And that's scary to me because you can see a ceiling case and you can see this work out well for any of the guys that are kind of on this list. Like obviously Joe Burrow is established, Justin Herbert's established, Kyler's established. I'm not really worried about those guys, but there are rookie quarterbacks that fail every single year. And it feels really scary because you're like, man, I don't want to miss out on this guy that could be the next generational talent in Caleb Williams. I don't want to miss out on the next Anthony Richardson in Jayden Daniels, but quarterback is just the hardest position, I don't know, in sports to get right, like year over year over year. And so for me, I find myself kind of shying away from this range, especially if I already have an elite one, and trying to take an elite wide receiver that falls to this spot. It's kind of just a philosophical thing. I totally get if someone wants to chase the upside of nailing 2 quarterbacks in your draft and having it set for the next 5 years plus and you're good. But the hit rate on these guys is not as high as you think it is. And so to me, it's I talk about out of both sides of my mouth because I see a ceiling case for it. But to me, there's just too much downside in a startup to miss out on a proven asset that can be your wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 for the next 3 years. And he's a stud, and you know that already.
Yeah, I would be happy with the quarterbacks we have here, and kind of it's like your second tier, Mike, where you have Burrow, Herbert, Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, and then Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels. You kind of have them pushed towards the end of the second round in a startup. So what you're saying is, let's say you start off with a wide receiver like Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb. At the end of the second round, there is a plethora of quarterbacks that you would feel comfortable there while still maintaining, rounds 3, 4, 5. Like you can grab running backs and wide receivers that are difference makers.
Yep, that would be how I'm starting it if I'm in those. Yeah, like I guess really wherever. I was going to say that the top of the first, but even in in a SuperFlex startup in the middle of the first, I expect most drafts will be quarterback, whatever, and then I grab one of those elite wide receivers. And on the way back, I'm happy to take a quarterback there because to me the difference of that tier of quarterback is so small. You know what I mean? Of once the elite guys are gone. So that's how I'm starting it.
Yeah, and I like this tier because they're players that have the contracts, Burrow, Herbert, Kyler Murray, Love's going to get paid, and then these rookies that have a leash that we just expect them to be around for a while. And when you grab a quarterback here and you grab a stud in the first round, your rankings, the next quarterback that shows up is Tua, but not until way later, which I'm just looking at all the studs that are in this area, rounds 3, 4, and 5 of startup. Like there are running backs that are super young, Etienne, Achane, Pacheco, James Cook, like all guys that we like a lot. You can get up to the 5th round. And then there's wide receivers, Neighbors, Chris Olave, who's the greatest thing that ever happened. The Texans wide receivers.
You still believe, Kyle?
I've never left.
I'm in.
No, legitimately. How is your faith in Chris Olave? Is it shook? Is it still real confident? Where are you at?
I'm there. I don't
full confidence.
I think he is, for what he's worth. I think he's undervalued, and so therefore I think he's a good trade target. I traded for him in a SuperFlex league. I traded for Olave this a couple months ago, and I feel awesome. He gets to be the wide receiver 3 on that team, so I don't have to count on him the same way. But yeah, I think the scheme change, Betz, you've talked about Clint Kubiak. They ran a dinosaur offense last year with Pete Carmichael being the same dude running the same plays for 15 years in a row. They're going to do fun stuff. They're going to put players in motion, right? They never did that last year.
I assume you mean dinosaur as in just you're saying old, not like elite fast velociraptor.
Correct. Although Olave could, but like, right, Beth, their offense was like, I can't remember the stat, but it's like archaic.
Oh, they were dead last in pre-snap motion last year, which, yeah. It's the year 2024. Like, let's figure this out. So they bring in Clint Kubiak from San Francisco. He was the pass game coordinator. San Francisco #1 in the league in pre-snap motion last year. And you look at the teams at the top. It's the Dolphins. It's the Eagles. It's the Niners. It's teams doing modern day stuff, which they were not doing in New Orleans last year. I don't know, man.
I don't understand. I don't understand what the disadvantage of just a little bit of motion. No matter, like, even just, hey, a quick man zone check, just real fast. Slot wide receiver run in and then go back.
Pete Carmichael said, no, Sean Payton didn't do this back in the day. We're still not going to do it. I know he's not around, but we're just not going to do this. So, yeah, Olave is in that stud tier. And my point was rounds 3, 4, and 5 in a startup. You can get Andrews, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid. Like, there are so many players here that if you did take a quarterback, you don't have to feel compelled to take a mid quarterback in this 3rd, 4th, 5th round. And so that's kind of what your rankings reflect. And a lot of times we think about quarterbacks having this really long shelf life. Like, oh, even Trevor Lawrence, he's going to get another contract, but it hasn't been that helpful. But for most of the league, they don't stay around as much as we think. Things change. And Mike, were you about to give a Trevor Lawrence dig?
I was just...
I could see it in your eyes.
I was thinking, like, what good is a shelf life if it's never done anything good in the first place?
Mike is looking. I kind of like Lawrence's here.
We all made fun of Urban Meyer in year 1. Maybe he just broke Trevor. Maybe he just broke him. You can come back from it. I mean, Trevor's been fine, like from an NFL standpoint, but he just hasn't taken the leap that everyone thought he would as the number 1 pick, as like the prospect. Right, coming out of Clemson, he was supposed to be the dude, and he's been fine in the NFL.
Yeah. I don't mind. Like, now that his ADP, we just did a mock draft on the Main Baller Show, me versus Andy, and I think I don't remember how many rounds we went, but Lawrence either got selected in the last round or wasn't drafted. I can't remember which one it was.
His ADP is like round 12 or 13 in redraft.
Like, don't make me do this. Fantasy football community, ADP changers, don't make me be in on Trevor Lawrence, please. I'm begging you.
It could work. I gave this stat last year and then I updated it this year, but 2/3 of the quarterbacks ranked in the top 12 of Dynasty stay there. Okay, and that makes sense. Like, Hurts is going to stay there, Mahomes is going to stay there. All the dudes are, but there's so much more turnover than we realize. Over the last 6 years, 10 plus quarterbacks every year who are the week 1 starters were not the week 1 starters the next year. The average is about 11. So 1/3 of the league is changing over every single year. This year, some of the most notable ones are the rookie quarterbacks. But then you look at the Raiders, it's like, well, Jimmy G's not starting here anymore. You look at the Patriots, Mac Jones, not the dude. The Steelers, same thing. It's like all of these guys that you thought were Superflex, guys you could count on as a QB2, Justin Fields, poof, they're gone. And it happens every single year. We just look up and look at the teams that are really, really obvious, like, oh, well, of course the Raiders changed over. Jimmy G wasn't going to be it. But it's happening more than we think. It's happening with guys like Russell Wilson, who had the contract, and the team said, we don't want you. I don't care that you're 19% of our cap. I don't want you on my team. So my last little point on Superflex that I think is worth discussing is this QB2, QB3 range for teams. Is it overvalued? Do teams have to have a locked-in QB3? Because I see people are like, I have Mahomes and Kyler Murray. Do I have to take a quarterback in my rookie spot? I know that, Neighbors is there, but I need to secure my QB3 spot. Where it's like, take Neighbors, man. Like, take these rookies, these rookie wide receivers. Like, I saw people, same thing. Like, do I take Jayden Daniels over Marv for my QB3 spot? And I feel like that strategy is playing for a floor outcome or a bye week as opposed to Marv, who's going to be amazing and going to hold so much more value.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. And I've seen that question a bunch too, on Twitter or whatever. Like, again, it feels like you got to take the quarterback. But like, if your team doesn't need that quarterback that, let's be honest, comes with risk, you don't need to take him. And it feels like when you do take him, I think the way you put it is perfect, Kyle. It's like, this is a floor play. Like, if Mahomes gets injured or if Allen gets injured, well, I can just plug in Jayden Daniels and I still got 2 starting quarterbacks. It's like, dude, if Josh Allen gets injured, your team is not winning the league, most likely, right? Like, you should be playing to win. You should be playing for first to maximize your entire roster, not take a quarterback 3 because you got to get a third quarterback. That's, if all goes well, follows the Michael Penix plan for the Falcons and sits on your bench for the next 2 years. Like, you don't want to do that. So I do think that, there's certain times where it's like the value is there with the quarterback over someone else. But when we're talking about elite prospects, whether, wide receiver or another position, I think it's okay to take those guys, especially if you don't need the quarterback.
Every team needs a third quarterback. Don't hear me when I'm saying, like, you want to find the Jake Brownings or the Joe Flaccos, all of these types of guys, because injuries will happen. Like, you look at who the guys were last year. It's like Herbert went down, Burrow went down, Rodgers went down after 4 snaps. Like, it's going to happen. But adjusting your entire strategy just to have a safety net is the only thing you can win with any combination. So I guess it's almost overvalued more than it should be, because I think people just want the safety net. They want to have that when in a startup draft, it's okay. You can leave your draft. Like, I have a league where my 2 quarterbacks are Kyler, Anthony Richardson. That's it. I don't have another starter. And yet, like, I'm playing for a ceiling outcome with this team as opposed to I'm just trying to look for a floor. Now, I'd love a QB3. I'd love to find one, but it's not like I'm adjusting my team or trading away my assets to make it happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you can figure out. Well, did you look? Are Kyler are the Colts and the Cardinals on bye at the same time?
I haven't looked yet at that.
Because that would be a big time bummer. My point was going to be for that team finding the 2 weeks, the bye weeks, and just figuring that out for those 2 weeks versus with a high level asset versus investing on that quarterback 3 to fill in for those 2 spots. I think I'll take the other side.
I'm saved. The Colts bye is week 14. The Cardinals is week 11. So I'm going to win the league.
Which, side tip, everyone should be. The schedule is out. You should be checking that right now. Check on your quarterbacks. Just see what's going on.
See how they're doing. See how the guys are. Okay, so I want to kind of finish this with a question, and this is mere speculation. We did this question last year, and it was name a quarterback who's currently a starter that in 2025 won't be. Now, we can't, there's some layups here. You can say Gardner Minshew or whatever. Last year, I believe, Betz, you put Mac Jones as your guess, and
nice.
He is not that starting quarterback. So looking at the list, 32 teams, some of these guys just feel so safe. Like, it's just, Kyler's not going anywhere. Kirk Cousins. Is there any chance? What percentage chance is it Penix next year?
Oh man. I think it's low. I will go 15%.
Okay.
I was going to say 15 as well, actually. I think it's pretty low. I think they drafted him with the plan to sit him and let him develop.
Okay, good. It's probably around that range. Lamar, he's the quarterback. Josh Allen's the quarterback. Bryce Young should be the quarterback. I should be able to say 90 to 100%.
Yeah. He's the quarterback next year.
Yeah. Dave Canales is going to do some work. Caleb Williams is going to be the quarterback. Joe Burrow. Deshaun Watson.
That dude, Kyle, you put the question in, and I thought I'm supposed to go figure out from the list who I think it is. And I was like, yeah, it's going to be Watson. It's going to be so great to say it. Like, what? I need a quick reminder on the contract situation.
It's not
guys.
Whoops.
Unless they want to do like a full Russell Wilson, they are locked in until 2027 because the dead cap this year, not happening, would have been $200 million of dead cap. Don't worry, in 2025 that would drop down to only $137 million. And then should they cut him, the 2026 season, $73 million. There also, I think there's a June 1st situation, so maybe 2026 they can figure it out by then. But guaranteed next 2 years are
higher than
holy crap.
Higher than it should be based on performance.
If it's another pretty catastrophic year of quarterback play for the Cleveland Browns, how is everyone there not fired?
I mean, the GM would be gone at that point.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I guess maybe you hold on to coach because he's done quite a good job. But it's just, I mean, if you go 3 years in a row of this calamity, how is someone not fired?
They probably are.
I'm with you. And if you have Deshaun Watson in a Superflex league. You go, okay, I guess he's my QB2. You're not getting those top 5 seasons. Those are gone that you used to get in Houston. He seems like not a difference maker, like someone that you're plugging in your QB2 spot.
Well, he's also just a liability. I mean, he's played 12 games in the past 2 years?
Yeah, nobody wants to trade for him. I have somebody that's been trying to trade, like, you need another quarterback is what they told me. And I said, I'm not trading my assets to get a QB3. Oh, I hate it. Worst thing in fantasy football is when someone tells me what they think I need. Get back up. You don't know my team like I do. All right, let me keep going. Dak Prescott, hopefully he's getting an extension.
Oh, he's a starter next year regardless.
Yes. Bo Nix, I think, should be the starter. It's not 100%, but Bo Nix. Jared Goff just got a bunch of money. Jordan Love just got a bunch of money. CJ Stroud's awesome. Anthony Richardson, yes, it should work.
Yeah.
Please let it work.
Well, it's not about it even working. It's you got to give a top 5 pick 2 years, and this will be year 1 basically. You have to give him at least 2.
I was thinking about the Justin Fields trajectory where he gets 3 years. Let's just say it doesn't work. Like it's clear this team's not winning. They go backwards, whatever. I think it's a good team. I think that they can be a playoff team, but there is a trajectory where you look at a good fantasy quarterback, like Justin Fields was a good fantasy quarterback, and then the NFL moves on. That's just in the range of outcomes for him. Trevor Lawrence, they're working on an extension. Patrick Mahomes is going to be a quarterback forever. Justin Herbert's awesome. Matthew Stafford.
Man, he has surprised me. I really thought Matthew Stafford would retire before last year. Was the amount of injuries, and I don't know, maybe he wants one more shot at a Super Bowl ring, I guess. But yeah, Stafford would, again, it wouldn't surprise me if he's gone next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he does have, it's the next 3 years technically under contract through 2026. But I think it's just a matter of like when he wants to hang it up, they'll move on kind of thing. I think he's earned that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, or McVay, or just maybe they do like the Last Dance thing. But last year, man, I mean, spinal cord contusion, like major injury risk kind of moving forward. So like at some point, if they have another year of success, I do think he walks away.
You need that to play football? From
your spinal cord?
Your spine?
Yeah.
Yes. It's recommended to have one.
Okay. I just needed a doctor to tell me.
So no jellyfish?
No, not recommended.
That's the first jellyfish to play quarterback.
It's a sick invertebrate joke, guys. Come on,
Mike.
Nice little freshman biology humor. No?
Dude, Mike's teaching biology. First he was teaching economics on this show. Like, Mike is on fire today.
Guys, this is what I do.
You could have been a fun teacher, Mike.
Oh, I would have been the best.
They're like, I got Mike. Best. I got Mr. Wright this year. Like, this is sweet. I mean, I would have been hyped, Mike.
Mr. Wright. All right, a couple more. Gardner Minshew, he's not going to be the quarterback next year for the Raiders. And AOC. Tua, he's lost some weight, so apparently
he's going to get a contract.
Yeah, McCarthy's going to be the quarterback. Derek Carr, they still owe him a lot of money, people. The Saints are weird, man.
That's the next.
Is money real contract. To them?
It's the next contract that I am looking at, and it seems like because I'm on over the cap. It's always a little strange with the pre-June 1st, but it looks like they can get out next year.
Yeah,
for very cheap.
He's definitely on the fringe. Where if you're thinking like, oh, he's locked in, like don't think that's for sure. Drake May, he will be the quarterback. Daniel Jones, I think we all think like this might be the final year, so don't count on that. Yep. Aaron Rodgers. Another one that you can't fully know what's going to...
that's
you don't even
Stafford
know what he's going
to
talk about next week or what he's going to do, much less,
Yeah, he might be campaigning for something. Who knows?
Jalen Hurts, he will be the quarterback. The Steelers, who knows? Between Russ and Justin Fields, what they want to do. Geno is not a lock. Purdy's going to get some money. Baker, beyond this year, is kind of a question mark to me. I know he got a 3-year deal, but I don't think he's long. And then Will Levis is a giant question mark beyond this year too, and Jayden Daniels. So we went through the whole league and we got to that same number. It's kind of about a third that we were like, who really knows? And in your leagues, if somebody is locked in somebody else's mind, you can at least go like, it's not a for sure thing. Like these situations will change over the years. So if you want all the rankings, make sure you go to udkplus.com. June 1st is going to be the release. It is going to be hot. It's going to be hot, people. Next week, Jason will be back, and we'll be getting into the Dynasty mailbag. Talk to you again.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your Dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.